everybody, welcome to my yoga channel. My name is Holly. Today's focus is going to be on the hips. So this is generally one of the most requested poses that I seem to have in yoga classes. And when people have tight hips, you generally have a limited range of motion, and I don't mean that in yoga poses. That can be just in your general life, like even bending down to pick something up. So it's really good to stretch these muscles, and also there's so many muscles that run through the hips anyway that support our knees and our feet and our back. So it's good that we do these poses even if they sometimes feel a little bit uncomfortable. So if you want to use a block in your practice, I have one to hand, and I will show you where we can use them in a couple of poses later. If you're fairly new to yoga, just take it easy. This is yoga on YouTube, so you can hit pause if you need to. If you've got a regular practice and there are some poses where you feel like you could take it a little bit deeper and I'm not cueing it today, then just go ahead and do it. So we're going to start today in a child's pose. So we're bringing our big toes together. Keep your feet, knees slightly apart, and laying our chest down across the thighs, arms down long in front of us, and resting our forehead on the mat. Letting those hips feel heavy. And just relaxing down here. Taking a moment to come in some stillness and settle ourselves into our practice. Trying to quiet the mind, letting go of any thoughts, any to-do lists. Trying to be present in the moment. And checking in with how the body is feeling. Are you feeling any areas of tension? If you are, send your breath there. And taking our inhales and exhales through the nose. Trying to make our breath the same length. And on our next inhale, we're going to start to move. So on an inhale, we're going to come to standing on our knees, lifting our arms towards the ceiling. On an exhale, we're going to bring our left arm behind us, left arm in front of us, right arm behind us, opening out into a twist. Keeping those hips facing forward. On an inhale, bringing both arms up towards the ceiling. On an exhale, right arm forward, left arm behind us, opening out to a twist. Inhale to come back through to center, both arms up towards the ceiling. Exhaling to lower back down into child's pose. On an inhale, we'll do that again. Inhaling to lift, standing on the knees, lifting the arms up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, left arm forward, right arm behind us. Inhale to lift both arms up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, right arm behind us, in front of us, left arm behind us. Inhaling, both arms up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, back into child's pose. We'll do that one more final time. Inhaling to lift, standing on the knees, lifting the arms. Exhaling, left arm in front of us, right arm behind us. Inhaling, both arms up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, right arm in front of us, left arm behind us. Inhaling, both arms up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, back down into child's pose. And then inhaling into our tabletop. So we're going to cross the legs, and bring our sitting bones behind us, and bringing our soles of the feet together. So if you've got quite tight inner thighs, you might want to leave a big gap between the heels and the sitting bones. So you've got a nice wide diamond shape going on, and just letting those knees fall out to the side. If you're quite open in the hips, you can bring those heels a bit closer in until you feel that nice stretch into the inner thighs. Holding onto the feet here and lifting up out of the waist. This might be enough for you. If you think you want to take a bit of a fold, you can start to hinge from the hips and lower down towards the mat. Just opening up into those hips. And inhaling to lift the chest, crossing at the ankles and coming back into our tabletop pose. We're going to step our right foot in between the hands, scooting that back knee back, pad the back knee if you need to, making sure right knee is directly over the ankle. You might want to bring your hands onto your thigh and just sink those hips down, or you can bring your arms up towards the ceiling. We're coming into our low lunge. Squaring off the hips, chest is forward, hands shoulder width distance apart. And feel that opening down the left hip flexor. On our next exhale, we'll lower our hands down towards the mat. We're going to take our right leg back and we're going to come down to lying on our fronts. We're going to bring our left elbow underneath the left shoulder, so we're coming into like a sphinx pose arm. And we're going to start to bend into our right knee, bringing our foot back towards us, and maybe we can use our right hand to catch a hold of this foot and just draw a little closer towards the sitting bones. So holding on to the top of the foot. If this is too much with your chest lifted, bring your forearm in front of you and just rest your forehead on your forearm. Just working into the front of the right thigh. You might be able to bring this heel to the outside of the hip and bring it down a little closer towards the mat. Exhaling to release this foot. Pushing ourselves back up into tabletop pose. We'll do the opposite side, stepping left foot in between the hands, scooting that back knee back, making sure left knee is directly over the ankle, lifting the arms into our low lunge. Remember, there's an option, you can keep your hands on your thigh if you prefer. Sinking those hips down, opening up into the right hip flexor this time. Exhaling to lower those hands down, taking left foot back, coming down to lying on our fronts. This time taking that sphinx arm pose with the right arm, so right elbows directly under the right shoulder. We can start to take a bend into our left leg this time and catching a hold of the foot, drawing it a little bit closer towards the sitting bones. If this is too much with the chest lifted, remember you can lower that chest down. Releasing that left leg and pushing ourselves back up into our tabletop pose. And we'll just warm up the spine, so cat-cows, inhaling to lift the tailbone, belly drops, chest comes forward. Exhaling to round and contract chin to chest. Inhaling, belly drops, tailbone lifts. Exhaling to round and contract. 2 more times in your own breath. Maybe as you exhale, you want to push with the palms of the hands and round with that upper back more. And after your next exhale, coming into a neutral spine, we'll make our way into our first downward facing dog. So walking our hands slightly in front of the shoulders, fingertips blade wide, feet to hip width distance apart, tucking the toes. On an exhale, sending that tailbone high into our first downward facing dog. So an option here to take any movement you want to. You can bend into the knees, you can lift the heels up and down. You can take the chest down towards the thighs as you bend into the knees. You can pedal out the feet. Just work on lengthening the backs of the legs. We're looking for a nice long spine here. Pressing down through the fingertips. On our next inhale, taking a bend into the knees, our gaze comes towards the top of the mat. We're going to walk our feet up towards our hands, coming into our ragdoll fold. So feet hip width distance apart, bend in the knees, laying the chest down across the thighs, catching a hold of the elbows with opposite hands. Just hanging out here, lengthening all the way down the back of the body. You might be feeling this in the hamstrings, in the lower back. You might want to sway gently from side to side.
and releasing those fingertips down to the mat. We're going to slowly roll all the way up the spine. So pressing into the feet, bending into the knees and rolling all the way up. Bringing our shoulders up in line with the ears, rolling them back and down. So we'll start to flow. Inhaling, circling our arms up towards the ceiling, palms meet overhead. Exhale, bring our hands out wide as we dive down over the body. Inhaling into our half lift, flat back, so palms hold the shins or fingertips can stay on the mat. Finding length in the spine, reaching the crown of the head forward away from the tailbone. Exhaling to fold. Stepping back into plank pose. You can lower your knees down for support if you want to, otherwise on an exhale we're bending at the elbows and we're lowering all the way down to the mat. Untucking those toes when we get there, inhaling into our cobra. Don't lift too high for your first one, make sure your elbows are in towards the ribs. Shoulders are down away from the ears. Exhaling to lower and making our way into downward facing dog. On our next inhale, lifting our right leg up towards the ceiling. On an exhale, bringing that knee in towards the nose and then stepping that right foot in between the hands, lowering our back knee down and bringing our right hand to the inside of our right foot and walking heel toe in our right foot out to the right. We're coming into our lizard pose. So you should already feel it in the hips. If you want to go a little bit deeper, you can come down onto your forearms. And there's an option here today to take lazy lizard. So on lazy lizard, we're going to roll our right hip out to the right and come to the outside edge of our right foot. So our sole of the foot comes off the mat. You can even bring your right hand onto our right knee and gently push it open. So opening up into that hip a little more, but only go as deep as your body is telling you today. If you're on your forearms, come back onto the palms of the hands, bringing that sole of the right foot back down onto the mat and make sure heel in and toe is out roughly on the edge of the mat because we're going to step into Malasana, our yogi squat. So tuck in the back toes, we're going to step it to the outside of the left hand, toes out, heel is in, and start to sink those hips down. Bringing our elbows to the outside of the knees. If this is too much, use a block. You can sit on your block on the highest level or the lowest level. Whoa. My knee just clicked. Pressing our palms through at heart center, feeling broad across the chest here. If your heels are lifted, don't worry about that. They might come down in time, they might not. If we were here for longer, I'd suggest using a block or a rolled up blanket underneath the heels. On our next exhale, lowering our hands down onto the mat, we're going to start to straighten into the legs and then heel toeing our feet in and rolling all the way up to standing. We're coming into our tree pose, so bringing our left sole of the foot either to the ankle, the calf or the inner thigh. Our left knee is pointing out to the left. Hips are facing forward and rooting down through that standing leg. Palms together at heart center. If anyone can take half lotus, you're welcome to do half lotus and then your knee is pointing down towards the mat. If you want to give yourself some branches on an inhale, taking those hands up towards the ceiling and separating those palms. If you're working on carpet like I am, it's very hard to balance. But don't worry if you wobble. If you've got a wall beside you for support, just use that. On our next exhale, bringing palms together and back through to the heart. We're going to step our left foot back about a foot. We're coming into triangle. So our left foot is parallel with the back of the mat. Our hips are facing the long edge of the mat and our toes are pointing to the front of the mat. Arms out at shoulder height. Reaching that right arm forward. Exhaling to take this hand down towards the mat as our left arm reaches up towards the ceiling. So you may want to use a block here to rest your hand on and give yourself a little extra lift. Gaze is up to the top hand if it's comfortable for your neck. On our
our next inhale, we're going to lift the chest. We're going to turn both toes out, heels in, bending into the knees, coming into goddess pose. So trying to bring our hips in line with the knees, pushing those hips open. We can bring our palms through at heart center. You can leave your hands on your hips if you prefer for balance. If you want to open up into the chest a little bit more, you can cactus the arms and start to bring the elbows behind you, opening up into the chest. Taking any option that feels good for you. Feel those glutes engage, thighs are engaged here. On our next inhale, straightening into the legs, we're bringing our hands down to frame this front foot and stepping back into plank pose. We'll move through a vinyasa. Exhale into chaturanga all the way down. Inhaling into cobra, or you can take upward facing dog. Exhale into lower, making our way into downward facing dog. So we'll do that sequence on the left. Inhaling to lift our left foot up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, knee in towards the nose, stepping that left foot through, lowering the back knee down, making our way into lizard. So bringing our left hand to the inside of our left foot. Option to stay here and just work on sinking those hips down, or you can come down onto the forearms and you can take lazy lizard. So coming onto the edge of our left foot as our knee rolls open to the left, sole of the foot comes off the mat. You can even use your left hand to gently press that knee open and work on sinking those hips down. If you're on your forearms, start to come back onto the palms of the hands. Bring that sole of the left foot back onto the mat. Knee comes back in. Taking that foot to the edge of the mat with the toes out and the heels in. Tucking the back toes, lifting the back knee. We're going to step into Malasana, our yogi squat. So using props if you need to. Sink those hips down. Pressing those elbows to the knees. Working into the inner thighs here. Palms through at heart center. On our next exhale, lowering our hands down, straightening into the legs, heel toe in those feet, about hip width distance apart, and rolling up the spine to stand in. We're going to come into tree pose, so bringing our right sole of the foot either to the ankle, the calf, the inner thigh. If anyone wants to take half lotus, you can. Bringing your palms through at heart center. And feeling that opening into the hip. If anyone wants to give the tree some branches on an inhale, taking your arms up towards the ceiling and separating those palms. If it helps in our balance pose, focus on something that isn't going to move, and that can help you feel more grounded and stable. If anyone feels very balanced, you can always close your eyes. Give yourself a little challenge. On an exhale, bring our palms together and back through to the heart. We're going to step our right foot back about a foot. Our back foot is parallel with the back of the mat. Toes, right and left toes are pointing to the top of the mat. Our hips opening to the long edge of the mat. Arms out shoulder height. We're moving into triangle, reaching left arm forward, exhaling to take that left hand down, right arm up towards the ceiling. So option here to use that block if you want to. And keep a micro bend in that front knee if your hamstrings are feeling really tight. On our next inhale, we'll lift the chest. We'll turn towards the long edge of the mat, toes out, heels in, start to bend into the knees, sink in those hips down, coming into goddess. Option to keep your hands on your hips here for balance, or bring your palms at heart center, or cactus the arms, bringing those shoulders back, opening into the chest. Feel like you're using your glute muscles to push those thighs and knees open. If you want to go a little bit further, just sink those hips a little deeper. pressing down through the feet. Inhale into straightening into the legs, bringing our hands down to frame this front foot, stepping back into plank pose. We'll move through a vinyasa, exhale into chaturanga all the way down. Inhaling into cobra or upward facing dog, exhaling and making our way into downward facing dog. On our next inhale, taking our right leg up towards the ceiling, exhaling, knee to nose, stepping that right foot in between the hands. We're coming into high lunge, so back knee is lifted, back toes are tucked, lifting our arms up towards the ceiling, shoulder width distance apart. Everything is facing the front of the mat here, squaring off those hips. If you're feeling any pinchiness in the lower back, take a little bend into that back knee. From here, we're going to interlace, bring our hands behind the lower back, interlacing the fingers, opening up into the chest, drawing those shoulder blades together, maybe taking a little bit of a back bend, so taking our chest and gaze up towards the ceiling, or you can keep your chest facing forward. Inhaling to release, bringing our arms back up towards the ceiling, opening out into warrior two. So turning our back foot parallel with the back of the mat, hips and chest are now facing the long edge of the mat. Pushing that right thigh and knee open. From here, we're going to start to flow a little bit. So on an inhale, we're going to straighten into this front leg as our arms face up towards the ceiling, palms facing in towards each other. Exhaling, palms facing down, coming back into warrior two. Inhaling to straighten the legs, straighten the arms. Exhaling, warrior two. Inhaling to straighten. Exhaling back into warrior two. One more time. Inhaling to straighten. Exhaling back into warrior two. Turning that front palm so it's facing up towards the ceiling. Tracking our back hand down the back leg as we lift into our reverse warrior. So taking that right hand up towards the ceiling. Nothing changes in the legs here, but feeling a nice opening down the right side of the body. On our next inhale, releasing from here, coming into warrior two. Exhaling, cartwheeling this back hand up and over, framing the front foot, stepping back into plank. We'll move through a vinyasa, exhaling to chaturanga all the way down. Inhaling into cobra or up dog. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Taking a breath here. On our next inhale, lifting left leg up towards the ceiling. Exhaling, knee to nose, stepping left foot through, coming into our high lunge. So if you feel like you're a little bit wobbly here, you can always widen your stance. So stepping your right foot out to the right slightly, and just see if that helps you feel a little bit more balanced. Option here to take that little back bend, so releasing our hands behind the lower back, interlacing the fingers the more unusual way, so the other little finger is on top this time. Opening up into the chest, drawing those shoulder blades together. You might want to take a bit of a back bend, so taking our gaze and chest up towards the ceiling. Releasing from here, bring those arms back up. Exhaling, warrior two. So turning back foot parallel with the back of the mat. Shoulders are directly over the hips here. We can start to flow. On an inhale, straightening into that left leg, bring those arms up towards the ceiling, palms facing in towards each other. Exhaling back down into warrior two. Inhaling to straighten. Exhaling to bend. Inhaling to lift. Exhaling to lower. One more time. Inhaling. Exhaling into our warrior two. Turning our front palms facing the ceiling, tracking our back hand down the back leg. Inhaling, coming into our reverse warrior. Gaze is up to that top hand. And keeping that bend in that front knee. On an exhale, coming back into our warrior, inhale, coming into our warrior two. Exhaling, tracking this back hand
up and over, framing that front foot, stepping back into plank pose, moving through a vinyasa, exhaling to chaturanga all the way down, inhaling into cobra or upward facing dog, exhaling, downward facing dog. And then starting to walk our hands back towards our feet. And then we're going to take our feet mat width distance apart, toes out, heels in, and start to lower back down into our yogi squat. So we've been here before. This time we're going to take it a little bit further. So we can bring our right hand out to the right as our left arm reaches up towards the ceiling. So opening up into the chest here. Maybe you want to take a bind, so you can bring this left hand behind the lower back, reaching this right arm behind us, interlacing the fingers. And releasing from here. This time we'll bring our left arm out to the left, right arm reaches up towards the ceiling. Maybe taking that bind, so bringing right hands behind the lower back, reaching left arm behind us. Remember to keep that chest open. And releasing from here, and we'll come into tabletop pose, so bringing our knees down. Whew, you should feel it in the hips here. And we'll make it into pigeon pose, so we'll bring our right knee behind the right wrist, our right foot over to the left side of the mat, scooting our back leg back, making sure that you feel even in the hips here, so you might want to bring a block underneath your right hip if you feel like you're popping up off the mat. You can stay here if you want to, or you can start to lower that chest down, resting your foreheads on the mat, on a block, or stacking the fists and resting your forehead on the fists. And feel that opening into the right hip and glutes. And then releasing from here, so bringing our hands underneath the shoulders as we lift the chest on an inhale, tucking these back toes, scooting the back knee in and making our way into tabletop pose. So we'll go the opposite side. So bringing left knee behind the left wrist as our left foot comes over to the right side of the mat, scooting the back knee back. Using that block underneath this left hip if you need to, and lowering the chest down. If you want to, we'll keep the chest lifted. And then bringing our hands underneath the shoulders, inhaling to lift the chest, tucking these back toes, scooting the back knee in, coming back into our tabletop pose. And then we'll come to the long edge of the mat, bringing both legs out wide. We're going to start to turn our chest over to the right side and taking a fold over this right leg. So pushing through the heels here and making sure the toes are pulling back towards you and knees are pointing up towards the ceiling. Try and keep that left hip down. And then keeping our chest low, we're going to start to walk our hands over until we're facing the left leg and taking a fold over the left leg. Keeping that right hip down. And keeping the chest low. We're going to walk our hands back through to centre and then walk them back in towards us as we lift the chest. Using our hands on the outside of the thighs to draw them back in towards each other. Bending into the knees, we're going to take cow face pose from here. So we're going to bring our right heel to the outside of our right hip, taking a bend into the knee. And then keeping our left knee on top, we're going to bring our left heel to the outside of our right hip. So you might notice that you have a big gap between the knees, or your knee might be over there rather than stacking the knees on top of each other. That's fine. If this feels really uncomfortable with the legs, then just come into cobbler's pose, bringing your soles of the feet in towards each other. We're going to bring our right arm up towards the ceiling, taking a bend into the elbow and bringing our hands onto the lower back. Maybe you just want to hold onto this elbow and just draw the arm back, feeling that lengthening down the tricep muscle, or you can bring your left arm behind you, bending into the elbow and catching a hold of the hands. Keeping the chest lifted here. And then releasing the arms and releasing the legs. And we'll go the opposite way. So left leg is at the bottom this time, heel is to the outside of the right hip, our right leg is on top, our heel is to the outside of the left hip. Trying to stack the knees on top of each other. If it doesn't work for you, then just skip the legs. Lifting the left arm up towards the ceiling, bending into the elbow, bringing the hands onto the upper back. Maybe you just hold on to the elbow here and just draw the arm back, or you can take a bend into the right arm, bringing it behind you and catching a hold of the fingers. And then releasing the arms, releasing the legs, and we'll turn to the long edge of the mat. And we'll bring our right foot on top of the left knee. So a bit like our reclined pigeon pose, but we're going to stay seated. So our hands are behind the lower back and we're keeping the chest lifted. So we've got a bend in this left knee. Push into the heel of this right foot, so the foot is engaged to protect that right knee. And we can start to walk this left heel in as far as is comfortable for you, and you should feel a nice stretch into this right hip. If you don't, you can try and push this right knee away from you, and you should start to feel a stretch into the right hip. And from here, we're going to transition into a twist. So we're going to start to lower this right sole of the foot down as we walk our left foot over to our right hip. So now our left heel is on the outside of our right hip and our right foot is to the outside of our left knee. Wrapping our left arm around the right thigh and bringing right fingertips behind us, coming into a twist. Inhaling to come back through to centre. We'll release the legs. This time we're going to bring our left foot on top of the right knee, flexing into that left foot, and we're going to start to walk our right heel in towards the sitting bones. As much as this feels good for you, and then just pushing that left knee away from us. You should feel a nice stretch into the left hip. Keep the chest lifted. And then we'll start to bring our left sole of the foot
Down onto the mat as we scoot our right foot over. So now our right heel is to the outside of our left hip and our left foot is to the outside of the right thigh. Wrapping our right arm around the left thigh and bringing our left fingertips behind us, coming into a twist. And drawing that belly in towards the spine so we can twist a little deeper. Inhaling to release and bring our chest back through to centre. Releasing the legs, coming into cross-legged. Resting our hands in our lap or on our knees. Letting the shoulders drop down away from the ears. Maybe closing the eyes or lowering the gaze. Checking how the body is feeling. Do you feel any different to how you felt when you got on the mat? We'll close off our practice on an inhale, circling our arms up towards the ceiling. Palms meet overhead and bringing them back through to the heart. Give yourselves a little thank you for making it onto the mat today. Bowing forehead to fingertips. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the practice and I will see you next time. Bye!